May remember that I put out a stream saying that I had a bit of a chat with my friend Joe. Well, what had happened was the Joe Rogan experience had reached out to actually Rogan himself to invite me on his podcast. Now, something I didn't know, they don't do the regular podcast thing where, and you'll see this a lot, bookers will go and just try to find high profile guests and get them on because they want to peel off individual segments of their audience, right? He doesn't do that. He actually just brings on people that he's interested in talking to. That's it. And he enjoys my content, enjoys my debates, enjoys the various things that I discuss. So he reached out. It was about, what was that? About a week and a half before I actually went, or maybe it was 2 weeks right in there and booked it out. So anyway, I kind of knew I was going, right? But then a couple of big mouths who were on my staff, who I told I was going, couldn't keep their yap shut about it. So then rumors started circulating about it, even though I had told these people specifically to shut up. Some people, man, they just can't shut their mouths. Loose lips, loose lips and all that. So, as a matter of cope, just pointed out that, um, no, of course, I'm likely not going to be doing something like that because why would a guy like that ever want a guy like me on there? Oh, and I'm not even a Jubilee All Star. And we made kind of a joke about it, right? Made kind of a joke about it. So anyway, after they invited us, and I called Steven Crowder, like, hey man, told him what was going on, and he was just like, and congratulations, like Steve, all Steven, all this guy ever does, all Crowder ever does, man, is just build me up. That's it. Never torn me down once. Any type of feedback he gives me is it's always constructive. The guy just doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He just doesn't. So he's like, why don't you come down here? We'll get you on Louder with Crowder. You can pre-promote that. You can pre-promote it and blah blah blah. I was like, that sounds good. That sounds good. So anyway, we have it all planned out, and then this massive winter storm hits. Like, I think we're gonna have to cancel it. He's like, yeah, I think so. Think so. So anyway, um, it was scheduled um, at the time of this winter storm, this massive winter storm that came into Texas this last weekend. I was like, are we gonna have to drive out there in the middle of this storm? So me and the wife, we get in the car. We're heading out because we take a lot of these trips together. It's like the kids are older, stepkids are all moved out, and it's just my two kids who are left at home. And like for us, it's like a date. You know what I mean? Like a date thing. And it's pretty nice, right? It just always reminds me why I married her because she's fucking cool. Now, the Texans, 2 inches of snow is a really big deal. To me, I found this laughable. I was literally laughing. I walked outside and I'm like, yeah, it's a little cold and, there's 2 inches of snow on the ground, but who gives a shit? You know, totally meaningless to me, right? Totally meaningless to me. So I just kind of laughed. Everyone's running out and they're buying their fucking bread and milk and they're getting all ready, battening down the hatches because the big storm's going to be here any day, any minute. It's going to destroy us all. For me, I was just like, man, I don't give a shit. I've literally been snowed in with feet of snow outside. You can't get outside. You can't get outside your own door. when the heat and the power goes out. And the only thing you can do in the Midwest when that happens is baby making to keep yourself warm. Only choice you have. So, having weathered many powerful storms in the Midwest, I just didn't think this was very much of nothing. But I underestimated a few key critical components. It's not that you have to worry about the ice on the road. If you're a Midwesterner, you're used to driving on pure sheets of ice. And that's what these were. The roads were just made out of literal ice. It's that the morons who are driving on them don't know how to drive on it and are hell bent on fucking killing you. They are hell bent on making sure that you only reach your final destination. That's it. And man, they are fucking okay. They are just dumb. People in Texas cannot drive for example. We're on the highway, right? We're on the highway. This fucking semi truck pulls up on the left side of the lane, which is where they had been piling the snow with the plow truck. Now, to a semi, this small amount of snow doesn't really mean much. But you could tell that this must be a local Texas driver because he decided that he was going to drive on the left side of the road and he was going to blow snow from his tire, which shot over his hood like a plow onto every fucking car on the right side of the road, crop dusting all of them and causing them all to spin off into the embankment. Now, luckily, having been on the other side of a plow truck 1,000 times in the Midwest when their dumbasses are doing 90 miles an hour on the side of the road, blasting snow onto your car, I know what it's like, and my wife knows exactly what it's like to drive completely blind for a limited period of time. So, again, not a huge deal for us, but for these people, holy, what a nightmare. I was like, look, this actually isn't safe. We should probably actually call and cancel. Wife's like, well, let's get a little further out of town, a little further down the highway and see if this clears up a little bit. Like, all right. 2 degrees can make a big difference. We get out of town a little bit, and it did. Luckily, it cleared up. Damn, that was some luck. So it cleared up. Pretty smooth drive the rest of the way. You keep going straight, said this chatter. Yes, very astute observation, dumbass. Yes, you keep going straight. But for other people, they panic. You have to understand they've never experienced that in their life. And the first time, it's pretty jarring when you're doing 55 on the fucking highway and suddenly you have zero visibility and your entire fucking car is covered in snow. It can be a very jarring thing. Okay. Anyway, so we get down there. Now this hotel we were at, can't recommend it enough in Austin. It's called the Driscoll Hotel, and they was so nice. Man, if we had Eats, Uber Eats, they ran it up to the room. They opened the door every time you walked in and walked out. The rooms were reasonably priced. The breakfast was fucking delicious. The staff was courteous to a T. Haven't seen that in years. I usually you walk into a hotel and they're just like, off, what do you want? Hey, off. Hey, you, what do you want? Go yourself. What do you want? That's how they fucking are, right? That's how they are. Not this place, man. Even the valets. You know what the valet did? We pulled up to the valet. Valet comes across. He opens up my door. And he says, what's your name, sir? I said, it's Andrew Wilson. He said, Mr. Wilson, is this your first time here? I said, yeah. He's like, oh, you're going to love it. It's great. And he said, "It looks like you've been on the road." He's like, McDonald's on the floorboard. "Yeah, we've been driving for a few hours." "Mr. Wilson, let me take care of that for you." This guy fucking cleans out the whole front seat of the car, takes all the trash, goes and throws all the fucking trash in the trash can, walks over. "Can we take your luggage up to your room for you, Mr. Wilson?" I was like, "Yes, you fucking can. You can definitely do that." He was like, "No problem, sir." This guy's freezing his fucking ass off too. It's cold as shit outside, especially for a Texan. They go, they grab the bags, they run them up, and I'm like, "Dad, just give this guy a big ass cash tip, right?" Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Anyway, I'm telling a story. If you want to watch the riots, go watch the riots. They ain't gonna go anywhere, okay? They ain't going nowhere. So anyhow, really nice place. Can't recommend it enough. You ever heard me recommend a hotel on this ever before? No. That place, amazing. Even every time I went out to have a cigarette, I'd go out and have a cigarette, and I'd be like on my phone or something, not even paying attention. They'd open the fucking door for me to go out and smoke. Be out there for 3 minutes, and they'd open the fucking door as I was walking back in. The guy would run his ass from the valet station. He would anticipate when I was done with my cigarette, just so he could run over and open the fucking door. Damn. Like, damn. Anyway, we get down to the Rogan studio. We walk in. I always judge people, especially when I have my wife with me, on whether or not they look after the comforts of my wife. And they did. Second, we hit the door. "Mrs. Wilson, have a seat over here. Do you need anything? Can we get you anything?" Treated her so nice. Rogan comes in. He walks over. He gives me a big bear hug. "It's great to see you, Andrew. How are you?" I was like, "Good, man. How are you?" "I'm doing well." Bull for a second. Well, the reason this episode was a little different, right? The reason it was a little strange, we went in, we sat down, and we were talking about something completely unrelated to, I think, what we both wanted to discuss on the episode. And then we were just bullshitting. He came over and he sat down with a cigar, and we were just talking and this and that, and then I think both of us kinda realized the cameras were rolling at some point. So that whole, like, first 20 minutes, the reason there was no intro or any of that, I don't think either of us really knew that we were we were doing the show just then. That was really just us bullshitting, really. That's why it was so kind of like such a strange intro, 'cause we were already slipping into good conversation, and they just kinda didn't want it to stop, so we just kept going. That's what happened. I was like, "Can I smoke in here?" He says, "Yeah." Like, Andrew Dice Clay really, really used that privilege, and I was like, "You ain't seen nothing yet." Said, "You ain't seen nothing yet." And he didn't give a shit. Didn't care at all. And that was one of the best parts of it. Totally at ease. I was like, "Yeah, I don't have to worry about running out and having a smoke." So we just sat down and shot the breeze. And that's the thing about it, right? Is that that's what it was. It was like catching up with an old friend. That's what it felt like. I genuinely liked the guy within first 10 minutes. I just genuinely enjoyed talking with him. If I didn't, I'd tell you, and you would be able to tell too. Just genuinely enjoyed it. People before I went on were like, "Yeah, you can't push back because he gets upset." He didn't fucking care. And you were all wrong. All of you sending that advice, you were all totally wrong. What it is when you're having a conversation like that, you can tell when somebody else is just being a dick, right? You can just tell when they're being a fucking jerk. That wasn't what the purpose was. I don't even know that there was a purpose. I'm not even sure that there was like a greater purpose to it. I think the guy just wanted to have a conversation. And sometimes, you just end up having a really fucking good one for no good reason at all, and that's what happened there. I don't think there was any greater design, any greater, greater things we were trying to necessarily get at or push towards. Just felt like 2 old friends catching up, unironically. That's what it felt like the whole time. Anyway, we were done with the show. He says, "Man, that was great. Love to have you back. I'd love to have you come back on." I said, "Yeah, I'd love to come back and do this again. Really did have a good time." He said, "Well, we're gonna have this big after hours party over here at the mothership. Why don't you guys come over? We'll put you in the VIP room." "Oh, okay, sure." Us Texans can sniff out good people. Austin's like our cousin, but even our worst is not that bad, true. So anyway, we go over to the mothership that night. Me and Rachel went back to the hotel. First thing I did was I had a celebratory shot, and it sunk in that I was just on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I was honest with Joe when the podcast first started. I was like, man, I really never expected to be here. And he said, "Yeah, man, I never really expected to be here either." I was like, well, there you go. So I had a nice celebratory shot. I'm going to have another one. Wife, bring me one. And we went over to the mothership, and it was surreal. Um, Tony from Kill Tony was over there. Right. Ron White, Tony was at Hinchcliffe, right? Bert Kreischer, all those guys. They were all doing comedy sets. Joe Rogan did a comedy set. Rogan did a comedy set in the show. You know what he did that was different? It was kind of cool. By the way, Tony is really funny because Tony Hitchcliffe got into it with a chick in the audience. He was telling a very racist joke. That wasn't a racist joke. And some chick just started freaking out in the audience. He just roasted her ass. It was hilarious, dude. It was hilarious. She was like, "That guy's not black enough. If he says it, he just tore into her. And of course, I was laughing at the top of my lungs, and then, I was pointing too because if someone's you got to point while you laugh, otherwise, what's the point, right? So anyway, so we were all up there, me and Rachel. Anyway, we're up in VIP stands. Waitress comes in, have some good drinks. We watched the whole set. But one thing Rogan did in his set that was different, when his set was done, he said, "Look, 10 minutes, and I'll answer any questions the audience wants." Wow, it's different. So the first question was, "Who was your favorite person you ever had on your podcast?" And he's like, "You know what? I don't have any favorites." He said, like today I had a great conversation with my friend Andrew Wilson. That was great." And I was like, and everyone stops. They look up. And I was like, "You don't have a favorite guest, Joe?" He, so, everyone's laughing. You know what I mean? Um, so anyway, it was a great time. Right. So after all the sets are done, Rogan answers all the questions that he had. He took about 30 minutes, even though it was supposed to be 10 minutes. Me and the wife, we go down to the VIP lounge. We kick back. We have some drinks. You could smoke back there in this VIP lounge. You couldn't believe it. Walking, I was like, "I can smoke cigarettes in here." Tony sitting back there. He's like, "Yes, yeah, everyone can smoke cigarettes back here." I thought the guy was gay. I didn't know. I didn't know. Okay, thought he might have been gay, but he was like, "Yeah, you can smoke back here. It's fine." I was like, "Well, yeah." And then there was alcohol, and I was like, "Well, I'll just help myself to this as well." I was back there bullshitting with Ron White, Tony, and uh, and Joe, and everyone for like 4 or 5 hours. We were just in there hanging out. We are just back there getting fucking drunk as could be, lighting that place up with cigarette smoke. And man, it was one of the greatest times I've ever had in my life. Just kicking back with these guys and just bullshitting about the world. Now, I'm not going to tell you everything that we discussed. And what I'm going to do is chop that up to I was so drunk, I just can't remember. So me and the wife, we sat back there, man, and we just partied like rock stars with people who I think are more famous than most rock stars. And they were, you know what? It was about as down to earth, a grounded bunch that I ever seen. And I saw something. I saw something there that impressed me more than anything else. More than anything. And I'll tell you what I walked away with, why my impression of Joe Rogan, my estimation of him just kept going up and up and up. You know, you hear things about people and anything people can do to poison the well, right? Here's why my estimation of Joe Rogan went up and then increased. You know, here at the Crucible, we've always, for like smaller creators, things like that, we've always given them an avenue using the Discord and other things to help them build an audience by giving them access to the audience that we have, at least to a limited basis, so that they can rep their shows and they can tell people when they're live and they can get the word out to thousands of people at a time or hundreds of thousands of people at a time. And it really has helped a lot of creators. It's helped a ton of creators really get moving. And that's what he does there at the mothership. You know, I talked to the people around Joe when Joe wasn't around. You know, he just kind of asked the question, like, so what's all this about? You know, how'd this come about? What's kind of the background here for the career path? Every one of them had the same thing to say. We're here because Joe helped us get our foot in the door. He helped us get where we're going, where he provided this great venue for us that we could really start to push our comedy. That's what he did. So my estimation of him just continued to increase. Those guys, even though they're mega famous, you know, what Tony has 100,000 live viewers when he does a show. Ron White was ultra famous when I was a kid. Of course, Rogan, most popular podcaster in the world. We're about as grounded a bunch as I've ever met in my life. If you never knew anything about those guys and you just ran into them at a local bar, you would just think to yourself, "That's a hell of a nice guy." That's what you would think. And that's what impressed me. Not the fact that this comedy club was great or the VIP passes or any of that. What impressed me was that that guy obviously was trying to help people get where they were trying to go, which means that he didn't make life all about me, 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 me. And you know what's really interesting about that? By not making life me, 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 he probably ended up with vastly more wealth and riches than if he had. Isn't that the biggest irony of all? Anyway, so we leave there, had a great night, woke up the next day. Joe had texted me. He said, "Hey, man, thanks for coming on. It was a great show. Love to have you back." Wife gave him a copy of the book. Um, who knows? Maybe we'll see a Rachel on Joe Rogan podcast one day. But it was a good experience, and he was absolutely a very grounded, very decent man. And whether I agree with him or don't agree with all of his political takes, or even most of his political takes, that was the sense I took away from him, is that there wasn't an act and it wasn't bull. And I can say that in this industry about what? Maybe 1 in every 10,000 people, 100,000 people, I don't know. So, yeah, that was my experience with Joe Rogan. That was my experience with the ultra famous comedians back there who we chopped it up with, was that, they were a pretty fucking grounded bunch. Rogan's way more fucking based than you people think. That's all I'm gonna ever say about that. Never gonna say anything more. No specifics, no nothing, but he's way more fucking based than you people think. Just saying. Way more. That's all. That's it. Make of that what you will. Make of that whatever you will, okay? Whatever you wanna make of that, make of that.